3 true home invasion stories that haunt your memories forever. Insane encounters at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3. That witching hour, shrouded in silence, when the world felt wrong. Shadows danced on the walls, and something sinister lurked just outside the line of sight. In homes around the country, the haunting reality of invasion began. No one prepares for nightmares to creep into their safe spaces. The night was dark and thick, and hearts raced as dread seeped in. Imagine your doors are locked, and yet, the screams of helpless victims echoed, a sobering reminder that safety is often an illusion. In a small, seemingly quiet town, the Thompson family had always felt invincible. Their house stood like a fortress, untouched and untroubled by the darkness outside. But one night, they heard whispers soft and sinister slithering through the air. It was the kind of noise that sent shivers racing down spines. They thought it was just the wind until the sound morphed into whispers of their own names. Panic gripped them. They huddled in fear, feeling cold sweat bead on their foreheads. What was out there? Were they being watched? And then another chilling detail, they noticed their blinds were slightly ajar. How could that be? They always kept them closed. Surely, they had heard the lock click into place when they went to bed. They could almost hear his breathing deep and heavy on the other side of the dark. It felt like a sightless predator was stalking them. What kind of monster would invade at such a cursed hour? The mere thought made their hearts pound even louder. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the Thompsons' fear twisted tightly around their throats, they heard a loud crash from the kitchen. Their eyes shot wide open. Suddenly, the world outside felt exceedingly still, eerily quiet, as if the entire neighborhood had paused, holding its breath. They exchanged terrified glances, frozen in place. Was it just their minds playing tricks? Shovel-like shadows dropped into view as they crept closer to the hallway. The hairs on their necks stood up like prickles, threatening to ignite fear with every heartbeat. Could it really be too late? The answer to that terrible question hung in the air like a heavy mist, suffocating any glimmer of hope. What awaited them on the other side of that kitchen door? With every second that ticked by, they got closer to finding out. And the story was just beginning. The moment felt like an eternity. The Thompsons held their breath, hearts pounding like war drums. It was a sound that could only come from an intruder, a shadowy figure lurking in their cherished home. "Did you hear that?" Lucy whispered, her voice barely a trembling breath. Her husband, Mark, nodded slowly, his eyes darting to the hallway that darkened like an ancient cave. Another crash echoed through the house, more violent this time. Whatever was in the kitchen was unmistakably large and reckless. It felt as if the kitchen itself was being ripped apart. Panic surged, and they instinctively clutched each other tighter. "Call 911. Mark hissed. He could feel the weight of despair settling over them, like heavy fog. Lucy's hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone, praying it hadn't died overnight. "It's gone," she whispered. The device slipped from her fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor, a sound that reverberated through their already frayed nerves. Mark hunched forward, peering around the doorway. "We need to move," he urged, gripping Lucy's shoulders firmly. "If we want to get out of here, we have to be smart." They took one hesitant step toward the hallway, the unsettling sensation of watching eyes pricking at their skin. Every heartbeat seemed to reverberate in the oppressive silence, threatening to betray them. They could smell the faint hint of something burnt. Was it their dinner, or the intruder's nefarious actions? On the count of 3, he murmured, keeping Lucy close. 1, 2, but before he could finish, the kitchen door frame shattered from within. A hulking figure stepped into view, silhouetted against the fading light of the house. The shadows wrapped around him like a cloak of danger. "Run," Mark shouted, his voice cracking with raw urgency. He pushed Lucy toward the back door, their only chance of escape. They sprinted through the house, the air thick with fear. The intruder moved with an unnerving calm, like a predator toying with its prey. From behind, The crashing items created a surreal symphony of chaos. The back door loomed ahead, its promise of safety just within reach. They could hear the heavy footsteps closing in behind them, each step filled with intent, a countdown to their reckoning. No, they couldn't let fear define them. Lucy grasped the doorknob, her palms slick with sweat. Mark was just over her shoulder, ready to throw himself between her and whatever horror lay behind them. "Open!" she shouted, pulling at the stubborn door. Then, a chilling laugh rippled through the air, sending ice through their veins. "Where do you think you're going?" It was gravelly and low, as if the darkness itself had spoken. The intruder was toying with them, enjoying every moment of their torment. Lucy's heart raced anew, desperate to escape. The door finally gave way, swinging open. They flooded outside, gasping for breath, but the night felt alien. The familiar yard had transformed into a battleground of shadows. "Listen," Mark urged, scanning the yard. "We need to hide. We can't let them see us." They ducked behind the lilac bushes and slowed their breathing, thoughts racing. They could hear footsteps approach the door, louder, more confident, a harbinger of doom. What awaited them in the dark could be far worse than what they had already endured inside. What did this intruder want? Why target them? The questions fogged their minds, but painted scars of fear on their hearts. "Do you think they'll find us?" Lucy whispered, clutching Mark's arm. "I can't let that happen," he vowed, but his voice quivered like autumn leaves. And as if sensing their presence, the footfalls halted. The air thickened with an unshakable tension, and from the depths of the looming shadows came that laugh, once more echoing in the night like a death knell. What horror awaited them if the dark was finally victorious? Would they ever escape the nightmares that chased them? The moon shivered above, as if holding its breath, hinting that the night was far from over. The stillness clawed at them, wrapping around Lucy and Mark like a suffocating shroud. They could barely breathe, hearts thumping in a ferocious rhythm that threatened to drown out every sound. As the laughter faded, the world around them shrank into an abyss of fear, each rustle of leaves setting their nerves on fire. "Stay close," Mark whispered, his voice hoarse with tension. They crouched low, backs pressed against the lilacs, their breaths shallow and frantic. The shadows danced as the intruder's footsteps echoed back inside the house. What had been their sanctuary just hours before now felt like a treacherous trap. Lucy's mind raced. Who was this ominous figure? Why did they invade their home? As the last remnants of laughter dripped into the dark night, silence enveloped them. It was unsettling, that kind of silence where you could hear your own heartbeat in your ears. "I think they went back inside," Lucy stammered, glancing up at Mark, desperation bleeding through her voice. But uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "I don't want to risk it," he replied, determination hardening his tone. "We need a plan. If they're inside, we can't go back that way. We have to go around." The thoughts of possible escape collided in Lucy's head. The edges of their yard turned into an uncharted territory filled with trees that loomed high, casting eerie shadows. Safety felt miles away, but she nodded, trying to muster courage. "Let us go," she breathed. They crawled beneath the lilac bushes, damp earth cool against them, then slipped further into the shadows of a large oak tree at the far end of the yard. Mark peeked around cautiously, every muscle tensed, straining against the fear that threatened to break him. Suddenly, the back door creaked open. The figure emerged, more imposing than before. It surveyed the yard, the head tilting slightly, almost like a predator caught in a moment of contemplation. Lucy felt her stomach plunge. "What if they have a weapon?" she whispered urgently. "We need to stay quiet," Mark replied through gritted teeth. "They'll likely check the front after this. We'll make our move when they're distracted." But how much longer could they wait? The unknown hung heavy in the space between them, a tangible threat. Each second felt like a lifetime, accelerating their fears. The intruder took a step forward, eyes scanning the darkness, seeking movement. Suddenly, a dog from a nearby house began to bark, piercing through the still night like a siren. The figure jerked, its body stiffening. "They heard us." Lucy breathed, her heart plummeting again. "No, they heard the dog," Mark whispered back, eyes wide with hope. "We might just have a chance." As the intruder turned toward the barking, Mark put a hand on Lucy's arm. "Now, move to the fence," he urged. Panic surged as they darted from the oak tree, adrenaline propelling their bodies forward. They had to reach the safety of the fence. Lucy could feel the weight of eyes on her, a presence lurking that both terrified and urged her on. They zigzagged through the darkness, breaths turning into steam in the cool night air. Time slowed as they reached the fence. Mark scrambled over first and then helped Lucy, a glimpse of escape glinting behind their fear. But the moment they landed on the other side, a guttural roar echoed from the house. "Stop right there." Lucy froze, blood turning to ice. The moonlight revealed the figure moving towards them, knife glistening like a wicked grin in the dark. "Run," Mark shouted, grasping her hand tight as they tore down the street, the night filled with sirens of urgency and dread. But even as their feet pounded against the pavement, Lucy felt the weight of something far more sinister trailing closely behind them. What choice would they have to make to survive? The streetlights flickered, casting ominous shadows as they dashed into the unknown, desperate for safety, yet knowing that the real nightmare was just beginning. Their feet pounded furiously, pounding the asphalt with a desperation fueled by fear. Each shriek of the wind through the trees only heightened their panic, the darkness closing in behind them like a predator stalking its prey. "Faster," Mark urged, his breath coming in ragged gasps as they turned a corner, narrowly avoiding a street lamp that flickered ominously overhead. Lucy's heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped animal. "Where do we go?" she yelled, her voice trembling. The street was empty, ghostly quiet except for their pounding hearts and the creeping footsteps that seemed to echo from the shadows of the nearby houses. Up ahead, that alley. Mark pointed. It zigzagged between two old buildings, a narrow passage that promised further escape. But as they reached the entryway, dread clawed at Lucy. The alley was dark, suffocating, but there was no choice. They squeezed through the narrow opening, a wave of chill air hitting them like ice. The narrow walls loomed over them, shadows dancing like wraiths, making their skin crawl. Each step felt heavier, as if the darkness itself was trying to drag them back. A noise split the stillness, heavy footsteps crunching gravel, the unmistakable sound of someone pursuing them. "Keep moving," Mark urged through gritted teeth, panic edged in his voice. They ducked deeper into the alley, adrenaline fueling their flight. Lucy's mind spun. How hard could it be to lose someone in a maze of alleys? But as they veered left, the sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. Shivers ran down her spine. "Do you think we lost them?" she whispered, peering back, her eyes searching the shadows for any sign of movement. "No," Mark breathed, his voice low. "We need to find a way out of here." But the alley stretched on, cloaked in darkness, twisting and turning as if it was alive, trying to confuse them. They emerged back into the night, the sound of distant cars and faint streetlights offering some semblance of safety. They sprinted down the next street, but dread did not fade. Fear was a living thing, whispering in Lucy's ear, urging her to look back. Just as they hit a patch of light from a street lamp, Lucy stumbled, losing her footing on the uneven sidewalk. She fell hard, scraping her palms against the rough cement. "Mark," she cried, panic rising within her. "Get up, Lucy. Now," Mark hissed, glancing over his shoulder. The glint of a blade shone in the dark, a mere silhouette against the golden glow of the lamp. Lucy scrambled to her feet, her heart racing, feeling her fingers throb with pain. "I can't." Just as she took a step, the figure emerged from the darkness, tall and menacing, a shadow stretched long by the streetlight, a chilling smile flickering across their face. "You thought you could escape?" They laughed, a low, sinister sound that sent shivers crawling down her spine. Mark grabbed Lucy's arm, trying to pull her away, but confusion clouded her mind. "Where? What do we do?" she gasped. "Run," Mark urged again, and this time, he didn't let go. They bolted down the street, propelled forward by sheer terror, but the dark figure followed relentlessly, their laughter bouncing off the walls, amplifying the fear that seeped into Lucy's bones. Her legs burned as they sprinted toward the end of the street, an intersection ahead where headlights danced a cruel hope. Suddenly, Mark stopped dead in his tracks, eyes wide. The car, the blue sedan. Lucy turned, spotting the vehicle parked a few feet away. The door was ajar, but there was no time to think. "We need to get in now." As they dashed towards the sedan, a shrill scream pierced the darkness, echoing from somewhere behind them. Lucy glanced back just in time to see the figure lunging, knife gleaming like a warped star in the sky. "Go!" she screamed, diving for the passenger door. Mark pushed her inside and slammed the door shut. They both scrambled into their seats. But the figure was fast, so fast. They reached the car as Mark fumbled with the ignition, hands shaking, heart racing. Lucy locked eyes with the intruder outside the window, terror freezing her veins. They lifted the knife high, ready to strike. "Start it! Start it!" she screamed, desperation pumping life into her voice. Just as the engine roared to life, a glimmers of uncertainty crossed her mind. But was it anger they saw, or something darker? Mark stepped on the gas, the wheels screeching against the pavement, and they rocketed forward, leaving the figure behind. But the horrors of that night were just beginning to unfold. Where would they go next? And would they ever truly escape those chilling eyes? They sped through the empty streets, the world outside a blur of lights and shadows. Heart pounding, Lucy turned to Mark, searching for reassurance. Did we lose them? Mark's jaw was tight, a grimace painted across his face. "I don't know, I just don't know." His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, sweat glistening on his forehead. The silence in the car was thick, wrapping around them like a fog. Reckless thoughts raced through Lucy's mind. What if the figure wasn't just a random stranger? What if it was someone they knew? Panic clawed at her throat. What if they follow us? "We can't go home." "Not yet," Mark replied, his voice strained. "We need to find somewhere safe. Just keep your eyes open." She glanced out the window, her body taut with fear. Every shadow looked malevolent. Every turned corner felt like an invitation to doom. "There! That gas station!" she shouted, spotting the flickering neon sign ahead. Mark took a sharp turn, tires screeching on the pavement. They pulled into the lot, but the place seemed deserted, lights buzzing like angry wasps. A rusted pickup truck sat idling at one of the pumps. The driver slouched over the wheel, unaware or unconcerned with their frantic arrival. "Stay here," Mark ordered, his voice low but firm. He reached for the handle and prepared to step out, but Lucy grabbed his arm, fear lacing her words. "Are you crazy? What if I have to see if they're inside? Just stay alert, okay?" She nodded, but her heart thudded heavily as he opened the door and slipped out into the stillness of the night. She watched anxiously as he approached the gas station, peering through the smudged windows. Lucy's breath hitched. Out of the corner of her eye, something shifted. There was a flicker of movement behind the gas station, a figure emerging from the shadows. Lucy's heart stopped. It was unmistakable. "Mark!" she yelled, her voice cracking against the still air. "Get back!" Mark turned, eyes widening. He sprinted to the car, a blur of panic. But he didn't make it in time. The figure lunged, a quick flash of silver, the knife glinting under the gas station lights. "Get in!" he shouted, urgency painting his face. He dove back into the passenger seat just as the figure reached for the door, fingers scraping along the metal. "Go! Go!" Lucy screamed, pressing her foot down hard on the gas. The car jerked forward, tires squealing, and they barreled out of the lot, the figure fading into the distance. What the hell was that? Mark panted, his face pale. "No idea. Just drive." Lucy's voice was thick with fear. "We can't stop." They raced down the road, adrenaline pulsing through them like wildfire. The gas station vanished behind them, but the tension didn't ease. It clung to them, a suffocating blanket that wouldn't let go. What if they found our address? Mark's words hung heavy in the air, the fear weeding into every syllable. Lucy swallowed hard, her throat dry. "We can't go home. We need a place where we can call for help." "Shit. Think. What do we do?" He glanced in the rearview mirror, tension knitting his brow. But Lucy felt a wild spark of desperation ignite. The diner. It's 24 hours. They'll have people. She was already mapping possibilities, pushing away any thought of the figure, clawing at the edges of her memory. He took a sharp turn onto another street, the road winding like a snake beneath the sharp glow of streetlights. "You think they'll be there? What if they've already warned everyone? What if?" "Stop thinking like that," she interrupted, her voice firming. "Just focus. We have to try." As they approached the diner, a sense of hope flickered like the outdated neon sign, but the gnawing dread returned. What if the figure was already there? What if they weren't safe anywhere? Mark parked hastily, and they both jumped out, scanning the parking lot as they dashed toward the entrance. Can we really find safety inside? Was the figure still hunting them? The air thrummed with uncertainty as they crossed the threshold, the bell overhead chiming with a hollow sound. But inside, an unsettling calm met them. Tables were empty, the diner eerily quiet. "Hello?" Lucy called, her voice reverberating against the walls. But as they stepped further inside, a pair of eyes bore into them from behind the counter, wide with recognition or maybe something worse. "Get down," Mark shouted, and without hesitation, they threw themselves to the floor. A glass shattered somewhere behind them, and the world felt like it was closing in all around them. Had the figure somehow caught up? And what waited beyond those diner doors? The shattering glass echoed like a gunshot, slicing through the heavy silence of the diner. Lucy and Mark pressed themselves against the cold linoleum floor, hearts racing, breath shallow. Every instinct screamed for them to run, but they stayed frozen, listening intently. Footsteps pounded outside, each one a thunderous reminder of the chaos waiting just beyond the safety of those walls. What was that?" Lucy whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's eyes darted around, scanning for any escape route. "I don't know, just stay low." His tone was clipped, the weight of fear pressing on both of them like a physical force. The bell above the door jingled again, this time more insistent, and a shadow fell over them. Lucy held her breath, her body rigid. A figure entered the diner, flanked by two others. These weren't just strangers. They moved with a predatory confidence, eyes scanning, assessing, looking for him. "Where are they?" One of the men growled, voice low and menacing. "They couldn't have just disappeared. Check the bathrooms," another snapped, glancing behind the counter, where the trembling waitress clutched a phone, her eyes wide and pleading. Lucy turned to Mark, silent panic reflected in her eyes as they both understood the figures were hunting them. They were no longer just fleeing, they were being pursued. "We can't stay here," Mark whispered urgently, his mind racing. "If they find us," Lucy nodded fiercely, but didn't have a plan. Her mind was a blur, filled only with the chaos of the moment. Suddenly, the rear exit door swung open, and an old man entered, holding a stack of takeout boxes, oblivious to the tension thickening the air. The figures turned, narrowing their eyes. "They're in here," one of the pursuers shouted, lunging forward. Lucy felt her heart drop. Time stretched. Every second felt like an eternity. The diner erupted into chaos. The waitress screamed, and the old man dropped his boxes, scattering food everywhere. "Out the back, now," Mark shouted, pulling Lucy by the arm as they bolted toward the kitchen. Behind them, shouts erupted, heavy footsteps pounding on the tile and gaining on them fast. They burst into the kitchen, cold air hitting them as they glanced around for a way out. The back door loomed, but the loud bang of fists colliding with the counter signaled that they were moments from being cornered. "Stay here," Mark urged, despite their shared understanding that the only way out was together. "I'll block them." "Are you crazy?" "No," Lucy cried, fighting against his grip, but he was resolute. "I can distract them. Just go." His determination hardened his voice, and Lucy felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes as he pushed her toward the door. Without another word, she shoved through the exit, her world narrowing to the bright light of the outside street. She stumbled into the alley, breathless, praying Mark would follow. But as she turned back, dread rippled through her. There was a cacophony from inside, the unmistakable sound of struggle. "Mark," she screamed, voice breaking, but fear twisted her heart. He had to be okay. He had to be. In desperation, she dashed down the alley, her feet pounding against the concrete. Adrenaline surged, her instincts screaming for her to keep moving, but every fiber of her being twisted in anxiety over Mark's fate. And then she heard a shout from the diner, something pure and primal that made her pulse quicken. From nowhere, a figure came racing toward her, face hidden in shadow, and Lucy's heart dropped deep into her stomach. Was it friend or foe? Could it be the figure that had chased them? Or was it Mark? The air turned electric with tension as she felt everything around her fade away, her world colliding with the unknown. What awaited her in the shadows? Who, if anyone, was coming to help? Lucy could only stand there, rooted in fear, waiting for the next heartbeat to reveal the truth. The figure emerged from the shadows, and Lucy's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't Mark. The unmistakable energy of danger radiated from the newcomer. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to get anywhere but here, but her feet remained glued to the pavement. "Who are you?" she called, her voice breaking the silence around them. The shadow stopped a few feet away, the streetlights flickering above them, casting an eerie glow on a face etched with determination. "Lucy, you need to come with me now." The voice was urgent, low, almost a growl. She squinted, trying to make out the person's features, but the dim light betrayed her. There was something familiar about the way the figure moved, a kind of fierce confidence, but fear clouded her recognition. "Matthew?" she asked hesitantly, and relief flickered momentarily through her panic as she realized it was her old neighbor, someone she thought she hadn't seen in years. But the way he looked now, disheveled and wild-eyed, sent a fresh wave of anxiety crashing over her. "Just trust me," he replied. His arm shot out, grabbing her wrist with a grip that was both reassuring and alarming. "We don't have much time. They're coming for you." "Who?" Lucy's heart raced as Matthew tugged her down the alley, urgency woven through his every movement. "Who is coming? What is happening?" Questions later. He barked, pulling her deeper into the maze of narrow streets. They flew past shadows and half-lit storefronts, and Lucy fought to keep pace. The beat of her heart thumped louder than her footsteps. She couldn't shake off the dread creeping along her spine. Every instinct told her they were heading toward danger. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind them. Glass shattered, followed by a chilling shout. Matthew's grip tightened around her as they shot around a corner, the sound of pursuit closing in. "I know a place," he panted. "We can hide." "What about Mark?" Panic surged through her like ice water. Could he still be inside? "We'll find him. But right now, we need to disappear." His eyes darted toward the end of the street, scanning for their pursuers. They ducked into an abandoned warehouse, the musty air thick with dust and the smell of forgotten things. The door creaked ominously as they entered, and Lucy's eyes adjusted to the darkness, searching desperately for anything familiar, any hint of safety. Matthew led her further into the shadows, past stacks of old crates and rusty machinery. "Stay quiet," he whispered, crouching behind a metal column. As they settled into their hiding spot, Lucy could hear their pursuers' voices filtering into the warehouse. "Where'd they go?" "They can't have gotten far." One voice was low and gravelly, the other more impatient, barking orders like a wolf on a hunt. Each word unsettled her core, echoing every fear she had tried to push aside. "Stay calm," Matthew whispered, his breath hot against her ear. "Just keep quiet." Lucy's heart pounded, but there was something else, an unsettling itch in her mind, a nagging thought. Why was he here? Why now? Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a small, wooden door slightly ajar. The hint of light from beyond illuminated Matthew's face. As dread settled in, a horrifying realization jolted through her. What if this was all part of a plan? Could she trust him? "Matthew," Lucy whispered, barely audible. "What are you really doing here?" His eyes went wide, and for a brief moment, vulnerability crossed his features, the facade of confidence cracking. Before he could respond, the voices grew louder, dangerously close. Terror gripped Lucy, and she knew time was running out. As the door swung open wider, revealing a blinding light, fear coursed through her veins. "Run," Matthew hissed, but the question lingered in the back of her mind. Haunting and strong, was he friend or foe? They dashed for the door, but as they reached it, a shadow loomed behind them. Was it one of the pursuers or something worse? The world around them spiraled into chaos as Lucy felt her heart leap into her throat once more, the necessity of survival crashing down upon her. What awaited them in that blinding light? Would they escape the danger or fall deeper into the unknown? The light was blinding, overwhelming, washing over them like a tidal wave. Lucy felt the warmth of it as she stumbled forward, desperately trying to shake off the dread that clung to her like a second skin. The shadows of the warehouse loomed large behind them, pinning their escape against a wall of haunting memories. "Go, go," Matthew urged, practically dragging her now. Her heart thudded as she put one foot in front of the other, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Behind, the men's voices were crystal clear now, like sirens cutting through the darkness. "Did you find them?" one yelled, the irritation lacing his tone almost palpable. A crash resonated from the warehouse, and Lucy flinched. She didn't dare look back. They pushed through the light, and Lucy squinted as her eyes adjusted. They found themselves outside, surrounded by a narrow alley cutting through urban decay, and a panic-fueled scramble broke out inside her chest. "Where do we go?" she gasped, looking around frantically for some sign of help, some way out. "There's a car at the end of the block. We just need to make it there," Matthew replied, pulling her in the direction of the alley's mouth, urgency piercing his voice. As they sprinted, Lucy felt her strength wane. The world spun around her, shadows pressing in, threatening to consume them whole. Anxiety gnawed at her insides. "Matthew," she called, her voice hoarse. "You still haven't told me who's coming. What is happening?" "I can't explain now, Lucy." He glanced at her, his expression fierce and desperate. "You need to trust me." Each step felt heavier, the air thickening with tension. They rounded the corner into the next street, where the glow of streetlights faded into an unsettling night. A flicker caught her attention, movement in the corner of her eye sent terror spiraling through her. "Run," Matthew shouted, yanking her closer as he noticed too. They pushed through the night, breathing heavily, as Lucy's mind raced through chaotic snippets of memories. Matthew, her childhood friend, someone she hadn't thought about in years. What was he doing here, standing between her and whatever malevolent force pursued her? In the distance, headlights appeared, the unmistakable sound of a car engine breaking through the oppressive quiet. Relief washed over Lucy for a moment, but then she turned to see the silhouettes behind them silhouetted against the flickering light, a trio of figures, harsh shadows against the concrete, closing in with terrifying speed. "Keep moving," Matthew urged, sensing her hesitation, his grip on her wrist tightening. They lunged forward, but Lucy's legs faltered. Every muscle screamed for a break as she struggled to keep pace. Matthew glanced over his shoulder quickly. "They're gaining on us." His voice trembled with urgency. Suddenly, a shot rang out, piercing and deafening. The sound reverberated through her very bones. "Matthew!" she screamed, fear clawing at her throat. He turned back, eyes wide with shock, confusion flashing. "Keep running. Don't stop." But how could she keep running when the world felt like it was collapsing all around her? A heavy weight settled in her stomach as uncertainty flooded her mind. They rushed towards the car. Matthew was already fumbling with the lock, each second stretching infinitely. "Come on, open up," he yelled frantically. Before she could respond, the figures stepped into view, illuminated by the car's headlights. Their expressions were cloaked in darkness, but their intentions reflected in the cruel glint of steel glimmering under the streetlights. "Lucy," Matthew shouted, and she felt the firm push of his hand urging her into the passenger seat as he dove in after her. "Drive. Just drive," Matthew barked at her. Confusion bubbled within Lucy, but as she turned the key, a chilling understanding settled over her. The engine roared to life, but the terror of what lurked outside the faces, the tenacity of their pursuers, burned in her thoughts. Little did she know that the next moments would unravel the very fabric of her reality, secrets surfacing that should have remained buried. The road stretched ahead, shrouded in darkness and uncertainty. Would this escape lead them to safety or deeper into a web of deception? As Lucy's foot slammed down on the gas pedal, the car jolted forward, tires screeching against the asphalt. Matthew clutched the dashboard, his knuckles white as he threw a frantic glance through the rearview mirror. The faces behind them blurred into shadows, but the memories of their intent did not. They were predators, and they were hungry. "Faster!" he yelled, his voice thick with panic. "They're right behind us." With every ounce of strength, Lucy pressed down harder, the engine growling in response as they surged into the night. Darkness enveloped them, creating a cruel cocoon of uncertainty. The streetlights splashed ghostly yellow hues on the road, illuminating their path just enough to keep their fear alive. "What is happening? Who were those people?" she blurted out, her heart racing out of control. "Not now," Matthew shot back, eyes darting anxiously. Just get us to my place. Please." His urgency fueled her own rising adrenaline, and she nodded, though her mind was still anchored in confusion. The weight of his request echoed violently in her thoughts. Home. Why would that be safe? The unanswered questions swirled like a storm in her heart. The shadows of her past mingled with the malevolence she had just escaped. Ahead, the road forked. A choice loomed like a black hole in her mind, dragging her down. Left was the main highway, with the occasional car lights cutting through the dark. Right led to a narrow, winding road, lined with dense trees. She could feel the churn of indecision rooting deep within her gut. Turn right, Matthew urged. It's a shortcut. Without thinking, she slammed the wheel. The car lurched to the right, tires rattling against gravel as they veered off the smooth pavement. Fear clawed at her throat, tightening with each bump and sway. Are you sure about this? She gasped, forcing herself to keep her eyes on the road while her heart raced to match the car's speed. Trust me. Just drive. The woods swallowed them whole as branches and shadows stretched into grotesque formations. The dim light from the car barely penetrated the thick veil of green. Lucy felt the weight of every tree pressing down, like a reminder of all the secrets lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, Matthew's phone buzzed violently in his lap. He snatched it up, peering at the screen, his expression darkening. "It's my sister," he said, the underlying tension clear in his voice. "She shouldn't be awake. Not tonight." "What do you mean?" Confusion washed over her, gripping her tighter than fear. "What is going on, Matthew?" As he hesitated, the sound of sirens wailing in the distance pierced through the night air, closer now, a chorus of panic threatening to break them apart. They were not just running from shadows. The real world was closing in fast, merging their nightmare with reality. No, no. Lucy thrust her hands against the steering wheel, panic rising like bile. "What do we do?" For a moment, he just stared, as if the weight of her question pushed him deeper into the shadows of his own past. "We have to keep moving," he finally said, as the cops were gaining ground. "If they catch up to us, we won't get another chance." Before he could finish, gunfire erupted from somewhere behind them, a deafening blast that echoed like thunder through the trees. Lucy gasped, her grip tightening around the wheel, heart racing at the realization that whoever was chasing them had just escalated the game to a lethal stage. "God, Matthew!" she cried, panic surging through her. "What did we get into?" "Shut up and drive," he shouted, but his voice was laced with fear, the command an echo of desperation. As they surged into the night, Lucy couldn't shake the feeling that they were headed straight into the jaws of a beast, one that had waited far too long to strike. And then, just when hope began to flicker, a car appeared ahead, sitting in the shadows, a lone figure stepping out and glaring in their direction. Uncertainty whipped within her like a whirlwind. "Who is that?" she screamed, slamming on the brakes, the gravel kicking up violently behind them. But as the figure stepped forward, the finality of the moment settled coldly on her skin. Treating an ambiguous enemy as a friend could be catastrophic. Would this encounter extinguish the last remaining spark of their escape or light a new, terrifying path? In that fleeting moment, the world stood still as Lucy's heart raced. The headlights illuminated the figure, casting eerie shadows that danced along the gravel. The tension was palpable. "What if it's one of them?" she murmured, barely able to keep her voice steady. Matthew peered through the windshield, jaw tightening. "I don't know, but we can't just sit here. We have to find out." With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they pushed open the car doors and stepped out into the night. Lucy's nerves were electric, her instincts on high alert. She held her breath, eyes locked on the shape ahead, struggling to decipher friend from foe. "Hey, are you okay?" Matthew called, cautious but firm, moving slowly toward the figure. A glimmer of recognition sparked in the stranger's eyes as they drew closer. It was Jennifer, the sheriff's daughter, someone they both knew from days gone by. But the fear etched on her face sent fresh waves of unease through Lucy. "What are you two doing out here?" Jennifer exclaimed. "It's not safe. Tell me about it." Matthew snapped, panic-laced frustration leaking through. "There's someone chasing us. We need help." Lucy glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see the dark figures emerging behind them, a nightmarish backdrop. The sounds of sirens were louder now, drowning out the echoes of the past. "Get in. Quickly," Jennifer urged, urgency settling over her like a storm cloud. "I have my father's car. I can get you somewhere safe." They raced towards the car, grateful for the reprieve. Lucy hopped into the back seat while Matthew took the passenger side, glancing back at the encroaching shadows, a scorching fear flickering in his gaze. The engine roared to life, and Lucy felt hope flood her heart again. "We're okay, right?" she whispered, forcing herself to calm, even as the darkness loomed closer. "Not yet," Matthew muttered, his knuckles white against the dashboard as Jennifer sped down the narrow road. "Tell me what happened," she demanded, trying to peel back the layers of fear. "Who's after you?" "It was a setup," Lucy admitted, a lump forming in her throat. "We were at the diner, and they were after us. The figure just kept coming, and we thought we had lost them." Jennifer's eyes widened, then narrowed with determination. "Don't worry. I'm connected. My dad will know what to do," she said, wrestling with the wheel as the gravel crunched beneath them. "But first, we have to get to the station. It's south, the safest place." Dread filled the air as they sped deeper into the night, but Lucy felt a knot in her stomach. This wasn't over yet. Jennifer's voice broke through her thoughts. "We'll get you through this." But as they rounded a corner, the car headlights caught movement in the trees, a glimpse of shadowy silhouettes darting away from the main road. "Oh God, they're here!" Lucy shouted, her pulse racing. "What?" Matthew blurted, his voice tight. "They're following us. They must know we're trying to escape." "Hold on," Jennifer yelled, swerving to avoid a barricade of branches that threatened to pull them off course. The tension shot through the car like a current. Lucy gripped her seat, acutely aware of how close they were to danger. "They're closing in," she gasped, fear flooding her body. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the air, and the back window shattered into 1,000 pieces, raining glass onto Lucy's lap. "Get down," Matthew yelled, but Lucy barely moved, frozen with terror. "Keep moving," Jennifer urged. "Just keep driving." As bullets rained down around them, Lucy finally shook off the shock and ducked low, peering out. The figures now raced behind them, like wolves hunting their prey. "We have to make a turn," she shouted frantically, looking for the first chance. "Up ahead, that dirt road." Matthew pointed, urgency spilling from his lips. Without hesitation, Jennifer took the sharp turn, tires kicking up dust as the car careened off the path. Lucy's heart raced against the panic in her chest as the darkness enveloped them again. They jostled along the rough terrain, branches slapping against the sides, filling the air with fear. "There!" Lucy shouted suddenly, spotting a cabin barely visible through the trees, the flickering light inside offering a glimmer of hope. "Try there." Jennifer nodded and drove toward the cabin, every instinct telling her to act fast. "We'll hide out until it's clear." As they approached the cabin, Lucy held on to the hope that they could find shelter within those walls. "Just park and let us move." Jennifer pulled up quickly, and they climbed out, the cold night air biting at their skin. "Grab the door," she hissed, rushing them toward the entryway. "We can barricade ourselves inside." They kicked the door open, breathing in the stale air as they stepped inside. Matthew bolted, securing the entrance while Lucy and Jennifer frantically searched for anything to barricade it. The shadows outside danced ominously as the figures seemed to gather just beyond view. "We need to find something big, something heavy," Lucy urged, desperation twisting her insides. Then, something hit the door hard, rattling the frame. "They're here," Matthew yelled, panic written across his face. They secured the door with a table, adrenaline feeding their fight against the encroaching darkness. With bated breath, they waited, fear drumming in their hearts as heavy footsteps approached. "What are they waiting for?" Jennifer hissed, crouching down beside Lucy. "They're playing with us," Matthew whispered, glancing at the window. "They want to take their time, but they weren't going to get the chance." Just then, a baleful howl broke through the silence, a promise that their nightmare was far from over. The figures outside began to pound against the cabin walls, their wild laughter echoing like a death knell. Lucy stared around the dimly lit space, the weight of fear pressing in. In that moment, clarity settled within the chaos. "We can fight back," she breathed slowly, her voice steadying. "We can survive this." "I'll check the back," Matthew shouted, and without waiting for a response, he dashed down the hallway. Lucy locked eyes with Jennifer, and in that moment, they both understood they couldn't just hide anymore. Determination surged through them. Together, they would fight back against the claws of fear that threatened to consume them. As the door buckled under the pressure of the intruders, they gathered their strength, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. No more running. No more hiding. This was the moment they would reclaim their lives from the darkness that had stolen so much from them. With a fierce resolve, they would stand together against the invading storm, ready to forge their own destiny. As the shadows crashed inside, they would prove that even in the darkest hour, courage could ignite a spark to push back against the night. "Let us do this," Lucy shouted, heart aflame. The doors splintered, and their fight for survival kicked off, forging an end to the haunting chaos of the night and a beginning toward finding peace again, whatever it took. Life would never be the same, but they would emerge from this stronger, bonded by the fires they had faced together, ready to embrace a new dawn free from fear. But right now, the battle was just beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any more incredible stories like this. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm so more people can dive into these wild tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think is going to happen next? Share your ideas below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us rally the community together. We can create a powerful force.